Her husband died on a Wednesday in November. He was 71. They had been married for 44 years. She handled everything the way she always handled everything, quietly and completely. The funeral, the bank accounts, the letters to his pension provider, the notification to Service Canada that he had passed. What she did not know, because nobody told her in the weeks that followed, was that she had a 12-month window to apply for the CPP survivor benefit, and that the amount she would receive depended on decisions she was making without understanding their consequences. By the time she came to see me, 8 months after his death, she had lost nearly $6,000 in benefits she had not known to apply for promptly, made a CPP election that cost her significantly because of a combining rule she had never heard of, and missed an opportunity to maximize her survivor benefit that closed the month after he died. She had not been careless. She had been grieving and overwhelmed, and nobody had given her a financial checklist at the moment she needed one most. I spent 28 years inside the Canada Revenue Agency. For part of that time, I worked in the unit that processed CPP survivor benefit applications and reviewed the files of widows and widowers across the country. The mistakes I saw were not random. They clustered around the same misunderstandings, the same missed deadlines, and the same rules that were never explained until after the window to act had already closed. So let me explain exactly how CPP survivor benefits work, the 5 mistakes that cost widows and widowers thousands, and what needs to happen in the first weeks after a spouse dies to protect every dollar that is available. Let's start with the benefit itself, because understanding the structure is the only way to understand what can go wrong. When a CPP contributor dies, their spouse or common law partner may be entitled to a CPP survivor's pension. The amount of the survivor's pension depends on 2 things. First, how much the deceased contributed to CPP during their working years. The more they contributed, the larger the potential survivor benefit. Second, the age of the surviving spouse at the time of the application. If the surviving spouse is 65 or older, they receive 60% of the deceased's calculated retirement pension. If the surviving spouse is between 45 and 64, the amount is calculated differently, based on a flat rate component plus a percentage of the earnings-related component. If the surviving spouse is under 45, there are additional restrictions unless they are disabled or have dependent children. For most widows and widowers in their 60s and 70s, the relevant rate is 60% of the deceased spouse's CPP retirement pension. If your husband was receiving CPP of $1,200 per month, you are entitled to a survivor's pension of $720 per month, subject to the combining rules I will come to in a moment. That sounds straightforward. Here is where it gets complicated. The first mistake that cost widows money is not applying promptly. The CPP survivor's pension does not start automatically when your spouse dies. You have to apply, and the benefit is not backdated indefinitely. Service Canada will backdate the benefit up to 12 months before your application date. After 12 months, the uncollected benefits are gone. If you wait 14 months to apply, you have forfeited 2 months of survivor's pension. At $720 per month, that is $1,440 permanently lost. I sat with a woman who had waited 16 months to apply because she assumed the benefit would start automatically once Service Canada had been notified of her husband's death. She had notified Service Canada promptly. They processed the death notification. But that notification does not trigger a survivor benefit application. The benefit requires a separate application on a separate form. The 4 months she missed came to $2,880. She cannot recover them. Apply within the first few weeks of a spouse's death. The form is ISP-1300. Application for a Canada Pension Plan Survivor's Pension. It is available on the Service Canada website or at any Service Canada office. The application can be submitted before the estate is settled and before all other financial matters are resolved. Do not wait for everything else to be in order before submitting this form. Submit it immediately and let the rest follow. The second mistake, and this is the one that costs the most money for the most people, the combining rules and the maximum cap. If you are already receiving your own CPP retirement pension when your spouse dies, you cannot simply add the full survivor's pension on top of your own pension. The 2 amounts are combined using a formula, and the result is subject to a maximum monthly amount, which for 2024 is approximately $1,364 per month. Here's what that looks like in practice. You are 70 years old. You receive your own CPP of $900 per month. Your husband was receiving CPP of $1,100 per month. The survivor's pension you are entitled to is 60% of his pension, which is $660 per month. If you could simply add the 2 amounts, you would receive $1,560 per month combined. But you cannot. The combining formula adds a portion of the survivor's pension to your own pension, subject to the overall maximum. In this example, the maximum is $1,364. Your own CPP of $900 already uses most of the cap. The amount of survivor's pension you can add is capped at $464, not $660. You receive $1,364 instead of the $1,560 you would have received if the full survivor benefit were addable. You lose $196 per month, or $2,352 per year, permanently because of the maximum cap. Most people discovering this for the first time are stunned. They expected to receive their own full CPP plus a meaningful survivor benefit. The combining rule means that the higher your own CPP, the less of the survivor's pension you actually receive. For some widows with large CPP pensions of their own, the survivor benefit adds very little after the cap is applied. For widows with very small or no CPP of their own, the survivor benefit is far more valuable because there is more room under the cap. This is not a rule that can be changed after the fact. It is built into the CPP legislation, but understanding it in advance before making decisions about when to start your own CPP can affect the outcome significantly. The third mistake: choosing the wrong CPP timing before understanding the survivor implications. If you have not yet started your own CPP retirement pension at the time your spouse dies, you have a decision to make about when to apply. That decision interacts with the survivor benefit in a way most people never consider. Let me show you why timing matters. A woman, call her Helen, is 62 when her husband dies. She has not yet started her own CPP. She is entitled to a CPP survivor's pension based on her husband's contributions. If she applies for the survivor's pension immediately, she will receive a calculated amount for a surviving spouse under 65. The benefit is structured differently and is generally lower than the 60% she would receive if she waited until she was 65 or older. But if she waits until 65 to apply for the survivor's pension, she misses 3 years of payments. The break-even calculation between claiming early and claiming at 65 depends on the specific amounts involved. Now add her own CPP into the picture. If Helen applies for her own CPP at 62, she receives a reduced amount, 36% less than her age 65 amount permanently. If she waits until 65, she receives the full amount. But the combining cap means that having a higher own CPP reduces the amount of survivor benefit she can add on top. In some cases, taking a reduced own CPP at 62 and claiming the survivor benefit earlier results in a better combined outcome than waiting for both. In other cases, the reverse is true. There is no universal answer. The correct answer depends entirely on the specific amounts involved, which requires the actual numbers from Service Canada. Helen needed those numbers before she made any election. She did not have them when she made her choices. The fourth mistake: missing the estate income tax planning that affects the survivor. In the year of death, the deceased's tax return includes income up to the date of death. Their CPP, OAS, pension income, and any RRSP or RRIF amounts are all taxable on the terminal return. What most families do not realize is that the CPP death benefit, a one-time lump sum payment of up to $2,500 paid to the estate when a CPP contributor dies, is taxable income in the hands of whoever receives it. If the estate receives it and the executor distributes it to the surviving spouse, it is taxable to the spouse in the year received. If the estate is the recipient and the estate is wound up in the same year, it is income of the estate. The tax treatment depends on who receives it and when. A $2,500 death benefit taxed at a 30% combined marginal rate costs $750 in tax. Proper planning about who receives it and in which tax year can reduce or eliminate that tax. This is a small number, but it illustrates that the financial decisions in the months following a spouse's death have tax consequences that extend beyond the survivor benefit itself. The entire financial picture, the survivor pension, the death benefit, the estate income, the terminal return, all interacts in ways that a brief conversation with a CPA can clarify significantly. Most families do not have that conversation until months after the decisions have been made. The fifth mistake: not updating beneficiary designations after the death. When your spouse dies, you become the sole owner of jointly held assets and the beneficiary of assets where your spouse named you. But your own beneficiary designations do not automatically update. Your RRSP, your RRIF, your TFSA, and your life insurance may all still list your deceased spouse as the primary beneficiary. If you die without updating those designations, those assets fall into your estate, triggering probate and potential tax consequences that could have been avoided. I have seen estates where the surviving spouse passed away within a year or two of their partner, without having updated any of their own beneficiary designations. Assets that should have passed directly to their adult children went through probate instead, adding months and thousands of dollars in fees to the estate administration. Update every beneficiary designation within the first few months of your spouse's death. Contact every financial institution, your bank, your investment broker, your insurance provider, and ask them to send you the current beneficiary designation on file. Change anything that still lists your deceased spouse, and ensure there is a contingent beneficiary named on every account. Now let me bring this together with what the first few weeks after a spouse's death should look like from a financial perspective. This is not a checklist that anyone hands you at the hospital or the funeral home. Nobody does. But these are the steps that protect the benefits you are entitled to. In the first 2 weeks, notify Service Canada of the death and simultaneously apply for the CPP survivor's pension using Form ISP-1300. Do not wait. Apply as soon as you are able. Also apply for the CPP death benefit if it has not already been claimed by the estate. In the first month, contact your spouse's former employers and pension providers to understand what survivor pension amounts, if any, are payable from workplace pension plans. These are separate from CPP and are governed by the plan rules, not the CPP legislation. In the first 3 months, meet with a CPA or tax advisor to review the terminal return situation, the taxability of the death benefit, and the interaction between the survivor's pension and your own CPP if you have not yet started it. If you have not started your own CPP, get the projected amounts from Service Canada before making any election. Understand the combining rules and the cap before you decide, and in the first 6 months, update every beneficiary designation and review your own estate documents, your will, and your power of attorney to ensure they reflect your current wishes. A woman I sat with had done none of these things when she came to see me 8 months after her husband's death. She had been surviving on autopilot, overwhelmed by grief, making financial decisions without the information she needed. Over the course of 2 sessions, we identified $14,200 in lost or recoverable benefits, including the backdated survivor pension she had delayed, an application for the death benefit that had not been submitted, and a CPP election she had made without knowing the combining rules that we explored through a formal review request, though the result of that review had not yet been determined. Not all of it was recoverable. Some of the missed benefits were gone permanently, but the exercise of going through everything systematically, even 8 months late, recovered a significant portion of what she had been entitled to from the beginning. I should say clearly, I am a retired civil servant, not a licensed financial advisor. For your specific situation, the most important first step is to contact Service Canada directly at 1-800-277-9914 and ask them to explain the survivor's pension calculation based on your specific circumstances and your husband's contribution record. They will do this calculation for free. What I have given you here is the framework, the 5 mistakes, the deadlines, and the steps to take in the weeks after a spouse's death to protect what belongs to you. The grief does not pause for financial decisions. The deadlines do not pause for grief. That is the hardest part of what I have described today. And the best protection against it is knowing the rules before you need them, ideally years before, when there is still time to plan around the ones that cannot be changed after the fact. Let me give you one more example that illustrates how these mistakes compound together in a single case. A woman, call her Diane, whose husband died at age 73 after a short illness. His CPP retirement pension was $1,180 per month. Diane was 70 and receiving her own CPP of $820 since age 65. The survivor's pension of 60% of his pension is $708, but the combining cap is $1,364. She was already at $820. The maximum additional survivor benefit she could receive was $544. Her total CPP became $1,364. She lost $164 per month versus the uncapped entitlement, permanently and irrecoverably. Over 12 years, roughly $23,600 in benefits the cap prevented her from receiving. She had no say in this. The cap is built into the CPP Act. What you can control is understanding it before it applies, so the decisions you make about your own CPP timing, your own retirement planning, and your financial structure can take the survivor scenario into account while there is still time to plan around.